Well, how do that, chums? It is I, Captain Steve, and today, chums, I want to speak to you guys in the viewerverse about balancing in No Man's Sky. Heck yes, because, here you go, let me bring up my multi-tool. It might be easier to explain this way. Now, there's quite a few modules you can get for your multi-tool, like the solar ray, and also the NMS beam, which are quite late on in-game. However, using either of these two beams, they give you sort of liquid sun or fragmented qualia that you can't really use in blueprints. Early game, you get the advanced mining laser, and that lets you pick up different sorts of resources in larger quantities like condensed items and things like that, which is quite handy early game. And I'm kind of wondering whether they should rename it from Advanced Mining Laser to something like Basic Mining Laser, because it gives you some of the most common of elements. And then maybe mid-game we pick up, a slightly more advanced one, and then a later game an even more advanced one, or that could be called advanced. So it's almost like a free tier sort of thing, because at the moment, when you start out, you are gathering a heck of a lot of resources. Within like the first 10 hours, definitely resource gathering is a bit of a grind. There we go, let's jump into the oceans. Now this item here, I believe needs a advanced mining laser for me to actually blow up. But the resources that I'm going to get from this is dihydrogen and chlorine. And dihydrogen and chlorine you can get from other places where you won't need an advanced mining laser. Here you go, look, I've taken out my advanced mining laser. And yeah, there you go, I can't mine this item anymore. But like I say, it's only going to give me chlorine and dihydrogen. And I'm fairly sure if I went to another planet, I might be able to find another resource that will let me have that without needing the advanced mining laser. But here we go, let's scan a few items on this planet just to take a little look-see at what's on here. But there's not much in the oceans that I'm trying to showcase that you will need a higher sort of mining laser to get those sort of resources. It's a little odd, the stacking just feels a little less balanced than it did pre-Next. There were some items in the actual iterations before Next that were quite rare, and you don't really see those sort of rare drops as often. I feel that they should add in some rarer items in the seas and also in caves to get people exploring the oceans and caves a little more. Even if it was for blueprints, for say endgame sort of stuff, maybe sort of like the alien multi-tools, maybe you could get different modules for the alien multi-tools, a bit like living ships, how you got different modules for living ships. Perhaps the alien multi-tools could use different modules, that sort of thing, because they are a little bit more OP than the experimental multi-tools, but even then we could have different blueprints for the experimental multi-tools, making the multi-tools feel very, very different. Now here you go, I'm on a different planet here, chums, and I'm swimming down into this nice deep ocean, and I'm going into an ocean cave. Now something else to note is the ocean caves are very much the same as the ocean not caves, if that makes sense. So you go into an ocean cave and you're not going to see any sort of new sort of assets in here separate to the ocean biome, which is a little bit disappointing. It would be nice to see different sort of oceany caves. It's like if you go into a cave in our own oceans, it's a lot darker in there, and you're going to see glowing creatures and glowing fauna. Maybe that could be a thing. They could introduce more jellyfish inside of the caves down here and things like that, and glowing sorts of creatures and crabs and all sorts of weirdness, which would be freaking ace. They could really take advantage of that. But at the moment, it just seems to be like a copy and paste job of outside of the cave in the cave. So here we go, let's scan this guy. Now this, I think, is going to this is going to give chlorine and dihydrogen. And yeah, I can just shoot this. Look, and it's going down. I could mine it just by using my scatter blaster or bolt caster or whatever I'm using, bolt caster. Yeah, here we go, mining laser. Yeah, I don't need the advanced mining laser. Yet on the other planet, I did need the advanced mining laser to get those two sort of resources. What I'm saying is, if you're using like an advanced mining laser, the items that you get from the advanced mining laser should be far greater than what we're actually getting in yield now. So that's why I feel that we need a basic mining laser, a mid-level mining laser, and then the advanced mining laser, a free-tiered sort of system. I know that means new modules and things, but like I was saying earlier, maybe if you do harvest some of those greater materials, you could then make a blueprint that acts as an all-3-in-one, like the idiom drive replaces all the other warp drives, or like your Atlas Pass level 3 replaces the need to have number 2, for example. So that sort of stuff. It could work quite nicely. And these caves are freaking awesome when you're underwater. I mean, this one is so freaking deep, I've got a little bit lost. I've got turned about and I can't find my face from my backside. Because, yeah, It's a little bit crazy, this one. Yeah, I'm in a dead end. I'm going to drown. Fun times. Right, okay. So I'm back out of there. Yeah. By the powers of magic and editing. And I'm over by my turtle base. Now, this planet I love because of the actual caves are that deep, I can fly my ship through the caves, which is pretty darn ace. So I do have a lot of fun in caves, I'm not going to lie. The caves are brilliant, and the actual terrains now in Origins are far gnarlier than before. So yeah, some of the caves are pretty breathtaking, but at the same time, the actual reason to go into them, not so much. And a lot of the resources that you do find in there, although they look really cool, like the assets, you can't actually mine them and actually harvest them for any sort of yield greater than before. Now, Sean Murray put out a tweet not so long ago, well, I say not so long ago, it was January of this year, and it sort of shows, you know, a poisonous item and then a guy picking up uranium, and it's like No Man's Sky logic. Well, back in the day, we had quite a few resources that are no longer in-game. They got removed around next. Now, they're always talking about iterations and how iterations are folding on top of iterations, but we had things like a Megion, Murine, Radnox, and I believe there was a couple of others that have been removed since next. And perhaps if they came back in and we added in some more blueprints, like I was mentioned earlier on, maybe having a separate sort of stack of blueprints and modules for the alien or the experimental multi-tools, in which different direction you want to go. You know, the experimental ones could be better for mining, whereas the alien ones are far better for combat, and maybe like the flamethrower, the incinerator, maybe that's only installable inside of the alien multi-tool, whereas inside the experimental, perhaps you could have some sort of grenade that goes off that catalogues a load of geology around you and picks up, you know, scans a load of the resources so you don't have to scan so often on the experimentals. Or perhaps we could use these sort of rarer materials to build modules for our living ships. At the moment, the living ships have got all these organ chambers and things like that, but maybe we could actually harvest some rare materials in caves and underwater to actually put in some different weapon technologies inside of our living ships, or scanners, or even launch thrusters, because at the moment the living ships doesn't really have many of the modules that super upgrade any of those items. The weapons that it has is basically just like having the photon cannon or the laser beams to shoot down friggin' asteroids and stuff. The phase beams, I should say. There's no rockets for these. There's no positron ejector. There's none of the upgraded modules that you can get for your other ships, which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, maybe harvesting things inside of caves, or even like these caches that you can find on planet surfaces now, chums. You get these caches, and they can be a little bit difficult to find, and when you actually open them up, you get very basic materials. But you could get that Megion, or Radnox, or any of the other items that were removed from game, and then maybe get blueprints to craft something that little bit special, and have these as mid-game or end-game items that are going to be sought after by the longevity of players. You know, early game, there's so much of a grind going on, and then mid-game, that sort of peters down a bit, and end game there's hardly any, because you've got your bases, you've got your farms set up, and it is more about management than actually gaming or a challenge when you get to end game. It'd be nice to still have something that's sought after, so go in for the alien multi-tools or the experimental multi-tools and find in some awesome modules that give you something really rare and gnarly. It's like on the experimental multi-tool, perhaps it could have a targeting laser, so you could target an object like a hazardous plant or a sentinel, and your pet will go and attack that for you. You know, there could be all sorts of strange modules that they could bring in for the alien sort of multi-tool when it comes to weaponry. You could have some sort of, I don't know, sticky grenade that sticks to an object and slowly eats it away. So you could fire, and you know that it's going to automatically harvest that item for you in a bit of time. And so you could just latch onto a load of things and it would slowly start degrading them. And then boom, you get the resources. Perhaps not in a higher yield as what you would normally get or something. I don't know. But there's so much that they could introduce into the game for you to continue going into caves and going into oceans in a way of balancing. I mean, we have mining lasers, and if you think about mining, what's the first thing you think of when you think of mining? Caves! So yeah, make the caves a little bit more abundant in high yield resources, be that in caves on the planet's surface, or be that in caves underwater. Add in some really rare and exotic materials for rare and exotic blueprints. I mean, that's another thing. It could be that in the cave mouth, what you see in the cave mouth isn't what you're going to see deeper into a cave. So yeah, you might see just a little bit of foliage, but as you venture in, you're going to get higher yield of objects as you go. And the same with the deeper of the oceans. You saw those caves that I dived into earlier. Make that a different sort of biome, different levels, and yeah, make them harder as you progress in. Perhaps you're going to need some more hazard protection. It's like if the deeper you dive in our oceans, the more pressure gets built up. We'll add that into this and make it a little bit more, of a challenge the deeper you go, but also make the rewards higher the deeper that you go. I mean, it's something that I believe they've got in Minecraft with some of the stuff that you get. They've also got the Nether. It's, again, they've also mentioned like the void and things inside of No Man's Sky. So perhaps we're going to need some of these higher upgraded items to travel into the void. I'm kind of hoping, chums, that meme that Sean Murray put out there, plus also these leaks that we're hearing that they might put in the way of getting into the void, maybe we might get a rejuggle of all of the resources. I mean, do you think I'm making any sort of logical sense on this? Do you find that once you've actually got to mid-game or end-game, some of the actual items that you're harvesting just feel very basic and feel kind of... Yeah, I don't really go resource gathering as much as I did. I mean, you can buy everything in trade terminals, which is fine in a roundabout way, but at the same time, it's a little bit odd. It kind of feels a little bit backwards. Early game of No Man's Sky is quite difficult to survive and get yourself taken off and into space, but then once you've done that, everything seems to start getting easier and easier as time goes on, and the challenge less so. I mean, I find myself late game, mid game, is building bases and just trying to improve my base building skills. And this is my Kraken Scorpion, which got featured in the Nexus. I guess I'm quite proud of this base. But yeah, this is the sort of thing that I've been building from mid-game, and that's all I tend to really focus on, and that's where I'm homing my skills in base building. I mean, you can see here I'm growing a load of Albion Pearls. One of the rarest things that you're going to find inside of caves at the moment is Albion Pearls. So why would I go into caves when I can grow them in the back of my frickin' base and Scorpion? Exactly. That's what I mean. There just needs to be more reasons to venture into caves, venture into oceans, and then tie that into blueprints and things to do and things to gain that are going to help you in later game, even if it is for base building. You can see here this has got an electromagnetic hotspot for energy, but why not introduce new methods of gaining energy like lightning conductors or wind turbines, and then you can build on extreme planets and have power sources. That would be pretty cool, like lightning rods and harvesting the freaking wind from tornadoes and stuff. That'd be excellent. I'd like to hear your guys' ideas and what you feel would help with balancing in mid to late game in the comments. Heck yes. And until next time, people, you guys in Viewer World have been freaking awesome, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye, goodbye, and goodbye again. I want to say a massive, great big thank you for watching. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And thank you to my backers over on Patreon and on YouTube membership. If you do want to support this channel, you could just not skip my adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or stay with Captain Steve a little bit longer and hit something on this screen. Heck yes, and there's also merch on this screen now. Awesome!